The storm rolled over the Kansas plains like an army on the march, gray, relentless, and roaring. In an old farmhouse off County Road 51, a single mother and her 8-year-old boy fought to keep the cold at bay. When 20 headlights cut through the rain and stopped by her porch, the last thing she expected was a man stepping off a Harley and saying, "We need shelter, please." Before we begin, drop your city or state in the comments. Where are you watching this story from tonight? Texas? Ohio? Maybe somewhere colder? Let's see where compassion rides. The wind screamed through the broken boards of the old farmhouse, like a ghost refusing to die. Inside, Raven Hayes knelt by a flickering fireplace, her fingers blackened from burnt logs and soot. Her son, Noah, was asleep on the couch, his little body wrapped in blankets that had seen better days. The lights had gone out hours ago. The last of the propane had run dry. She stared at the ceiling, rain dripping through in steady beats, one drop for every dollar she didn't have. Raven wasn't supposed to end up like this. 2 years ago, she wore a uniform, U.S. Marines, Logistics Division, precision, grit, responsibility. But after her husband was killed in a supply convoy accident overseas, her world went belly up fast. Bills piled up. Her small delivery business failed when clients stopped paying. The bank took her truck, then the business office. Now she was surviving on grit and coffee, except she ran out of coffee 3 days ago. She gazed at the family picture still hanging above the mantel. The frame was cracked, the photo inside slightly water-damaged. Ethan smiling in his uniform, Noah barely 4 years old, her leaning into his shoulder. It was their last Christmas together. The sound of engines hit her ears before she saw the lights. At first, she thought it was thunder. But no, it was deeper, heavier, rhythmic. Motorcycles, a lot of them. She moved to the window. 20 headlamps cut through the rain, crawling up her muddy driveway like a fleet emerging from the storm. Her heartbeat quickened. Bikers? Out here? They slowed to a stop, water streaming off their leather jackets. The lead rider, tall, broad-shouldered, helmet reflecting the dull flash of lightning, dismounted and walked toward her porch with calm confidence. He wasn't menacing, just purposeful. When he reached the door, he knocked once. Clear, firm, not impatient. Raven froze. Then she heard a voice, deep and steady, like gravel soaked in whiskey. "Ma'am, we need shelter, please." Just 6 words, the kind that made her instinct, marine instinct, weigh caution against compassion. She cracked the door open. The man removed his helmet. He looked about 40, with a short beard peppered with gray and steady eyes that spoke of years under open skies. Behind him, 19 other men waited silently with their bikes idling low. "I'm Marcus," he said. "We've been riding cross-country for a charity run, hit a washed-out bridge 10 miles back. Roads are cut off. We just need a dry place for the night. No trouble, I promise." Raven noticed something odd then. The patches on their jackets didn't scream out some wild club name. Instead, in neat black embroidery over gray leather, it read, "Iron Brotherhood Logistics, Esther 2016. She swallowed. "You're with a company?" Marcus nodded, rain dripping down his face. "Yeah, we're a veterans outfit. We run freight across the country. Veterans, ex-Marines, Army, Navy. A few of us got stranded. We saw your porch light. Or maybe it was hope pulling us in." That last line made her laugh nervously. Warmth flickered in her chest, something she hadn't felt in months. She nodded toward the barn. "It's not much, but it's dry. You and your men can use it." "Only if you let me fix that roof leak first," Marcus said, glancing up at her shingles. Before she could answer, one of his men, older with an army patch on his sleeve, said, "Boss, we can tarp the bikes. Get the generator running for the lady here." She blinked. "You have a generator?" Marcus grinned. "We don't ride without power." Within minutes, the sound of boots and laughter filled the silence that had haunted her home for months. The men moved with surprising discipline, efficient, respectful, almost military. Tarps flew over bikes. One set up the generator on cinder blocks. Another handed her a thermos. Coffee, black. You look like you could use it. When she took that first sip, warmth hit her like sunlight. By nightfall, they'd fixed her roof with tarp and patch tape, sealed a leaking window, and got the lights back on. Noah woke up, rubbing his eyes, confusion turning to wonder as he stared at 20 soaked bikers gathered around his living room. "Mom," he whispered, "are they superheroes?" Marcus chuckled from behind his gloves. "Not even close, kid." Raven smiled faintly. "Close enough tonight." The storm outside grew angrier, but inside that house, laughter replaced wind. A few men shared ghost stories. Another gently tuned an old guitar. Marcus sat quietly by the fire. Raven studied him, the way his eyes flickered between flames and shadows. "You really run a company with all these guys?" she asked. "Started it after I got out," he said. "Freight hauling. Thought I was saving veterans by giving them work. Turns out it saved me, too." She nodded slowly. "And you're still helping strangers in storms." His smile was small and tired. "That's the easy part. Life's storms are the hard ones." Raven looked down at the mug in her hands, heat seeping through her fingers. For the first time in a long time, the silence in her heart didn't feel heavy. By morning, the storm had broken. The clouds parted, letting morning light spill across Raven's field like forgiveness itself. The ground steamed from the cold, and the bikes stood gleaming, black chrome jewels in the sunlight. Marcus and his crew moved like a trained unit. Some brewed coffee, others checked bike chains and gear. 2 men quietly patched the porch steps without being asked. Raven stood by the window, arms folded, still figuring out what kind of people these were. They'd shown up in the night like a storm, yet left her house cleaner than before. She'd seen soldiers do that, men fixing what they could, even in ruins. When she opened the front door, Marcus looked up from his bike. "Morning, Marine." It caught her off guard. "How'd you know?" He shrugged, wiping grease off his hands. "The way you checked that door last night. Finger on the edge, stance balanced, eyes scanning before you opened. Marines learn to survive without thinking about it." She smiled faintly. "Old habits die hard." "Yeah," he said softly. "Some habits keep us alive." She nodded to the team. "Your men. They all like you." He chuckled. "They tolerate me. We've been through stuff together. Lost jobs, marriages, friends. Some came out of the Corps with no purpose, so we built one." "What kind of company is Iron Brotherhood?" she asked. "Freight by day," Marcus said. "But the real work happens after hours. We rebuild veteran homes, run donation drives, sponsor single-parent mechanics. A few of the guys here used to live under bridges. Now they train vets to drive rigs and bikes." Raven watched Noah wander to the porch, holding his toy Jeep, cracked wheels and all. Marcus smiled at him. "You like trucks, kid?" Noah nodded proudly. "Mom says I used to ride in real ones, before the bad guys took Daddy's truck." Marcus paused gently. "Your dad served too, huh?" Raven nodded slowly. "Convoy accident outside Fallujah. He was running supplies." Something changed in Marcus's expression, like recognition. "I lost my best friend on that route in '09. Different squad, but same stretch." For a moment, silence filled the air between them, the kind that didn't need words. Inside, his men ate breakfast by the fire. Despite their rugged looks, tattoos, scars, heavy boots, they moved carefully in Raven's space. One mopped the mud from the floor, another stacked firewood properly. When Marcus finished tightening the bolts on his bike, he turned to her. "We owe you for last night. Roads are clearing. We could roll out by noon, but I'd rather repay kindness than just burn gas." Raven shook her head. "You already did enough." Marcus leaned on the railing. You got a roof barely hanging on, land that could grow something, and a woman who's been in survival mode for way too long. That ain't enough for me." She crossed her arms, skeptical. "What are you suggesting?" Marcus grinned. "We're going to fix your roof properly, maybe wire that barn, and while we're at it, Noah's Jeep needs new wheels." She tried to argue, but his tone wasn't up for debate. It wasn't pity, it was respect. By sunset, hammers echoed across the farmhouse. The Iron Brotherhood worked like clockwork. Drills, patch kits, laughter carried by wind. Raven hadn't seen people move with that kind of purpose in years. Noah laughed as one biker lifted him onto a Harley. "Whoa! Can I start it?" The man winked. "Not this one, boss man, but next storm maybe you lead the convoy." Raven slipped out to the porch, watching her child's eyes gleam for the first time since Ethan's funeral. Marcus stood beside her, his voice soft but full of gravity. "You ever think about rebuilding?" "Rebuilding what?" "Life," he said simply. "The version where you don't just survive, you drive." She folded her arms tighter. "Dreams like that cost money, and I've got none." Marcus nodded. "I get it. But sometimes all it takes is a network. I've got contracts opening on the east routes next month. Freight runs pay decent, and I could teach you logistics management again, marine to marine." Raven blinked. "You're offering me a job?" "A chance," Marcus corrected. "The job's yours if you earn it." For the first time in years, she felt something strange. Possibility. Weeks passed. The Brotherhood moved on after 2 days, but Marcus returned 2 weeks later, this time in a truck with a new roof load and boxes labeled IBL Outreach. Raven stared at the shipment slip. Diesel filters, engine oil, spare tires. Her hands trembled. "You're serious about that offer?" Marcus nodded. "I told my board I was hiring a new contractor, someone who understands sacrifice over profit. That's hard to find these days." She exhaled shakily. "Marcus, I barely have gas to drive 10 miles. How could I even—" "We'll handle the logistics," he said gently. "You handle the comeback." Something cracked inside her chest, something she'd been holding for years. Tears welled up before she could stop them. "I can't pay you back," she whispered. Marcus shook his head. "You already did. You let 20 riders feel human again." That night, she found a letter taped to her front door. No signature, just grease stains and block handwriting. Sometimes home isn't a place. It's the moment somebody knocks and you open the door. Keep it open. M. She folded the note like a vow. That winter, Raven joined Iron Brotherhood as a dispatcher. Her old Marine instincts found new rhythm. Within 6 months, she coordinated routes, arranged relief supplies, and trained other veterans' wives. The Brotherhood grew stronger. Rough men led by a woman who'd survived worse storms. Every night, her porch light stayed on, a beacon for travelers. Folks started calling her place the Haven. And every Christmas, a roar of engines thundered down her driveway. 20 Harleys forming a circle around the farmhouse, headlights shining like a ring of guardians. Marcus would step up the porch, smile his old quiet smile, and say the words she'd never forget. "We need shelter, please." And every year she'd reply, "You'll always have one here." By year's end, Raven's farmhouse had transformed. The broken fences were upright, the once empty barn hummed with engines under repair, and the sign outside read, "The Haven Project," a safe space initiative for single-parent veterans sponsored quietly by Iron Brotherhood Logistics. Every week, a new face showed up, a mother from Nebraska looking for work, a retired Army medic with nowhere to live, a widowed Marine corporal who'd lost everything but his bike. Raven didn't turn any of them away. The Brotherhood had taught her something. Leadership didn't mean control, it meant compassion with structure. At night, when the heater hummed and the smell of oil mixed with coffee, she'd look out at the row of tents behind the barn. families rebuilding from scratch, laughing around bonfires, finding pieces of themselves they thought war had stolen forever. Marcus hadn't written in weeks. After his letter, he went dark. No calls, no visits. She kept telling herself he was probably on the road, running relief routes through the mountain states. But some nights, when wind howled through the fields again, she couldn't help whispering his words. "We need shelter, please." One January evening, headlights returned. This time, not 20, 35. Engines thundered into the yard, forming a semicircle. When the first bike stopped, Marcus stepped off, looking older, wearier, but alive. Behind him rode men and women wearing mixed patches: Iron Brotherhood, Legion Riders, Patriot Guard. Veterans from all corners of the country, some missing arms, some just missing purpose. Raven's breath caught. "You brought an army," she said. He grinned. "An army of rebuilt souls. They came for what?" Marcus's tone softened. "For the Haven. We're expanding it. Word spread through VFW posts and rider pages. You started something that's saving lives." Her eyes glistened. "No, we did." He shook his head. "You lit the fire. We're just keeping it burning." That night, as the convoy parked under the Kansas stars, the camp came alive. Laughter, veterans swapping stories, kids running between bikes, and the soft sound of engines cooling in the chill air. Raven watched the bonfire reflect in Marcus's eyes. "You look tired," she murmured. He laughed faintly. "Spent the last month hauling storm relief in Wyoming. Lost 2 of our trucks but saved a family. Feels like a fair trade." She smiled. "Still saving everyone but yourself." Marcus looked at her quietly. "If I stop riding, I remember too much." Raven stepped closer. "If you stop letting people in, you'll remember it forever." They stood there a long moment before he finally said, "Maybe that's why the road brought me back here." Spring came with thunder again. Only this time it wasn't rain, it was engines. The Haven's first charity convoy roared down Main Street. 24 Harleys and a truck caravan carried donated supplies for flood victims in Missouri. Raven rode front passenger beside Marcus, her hands gripping the dash, eyes bright in the wind. Noah sat in the back seat, waving a tiny flag that said, "Ride for Hope." At every stoplight, veterans saluted. Locals lined up waving. The convoy wasn't just a ride, it was proof that tragedy could give birth to purpose. At a diner pit stop, Marcus leaned on his bike and watched Raven talk to volunteers. Her confidence reminded him of someone who'd rebuilt from ashes and dared to lead others out. "You know," he said later, "a year ago you looked like someone who didn't trust the sun to rise." She laughed. "And now?" "Now you're the sunrise." That night, they arrived in Missouri, unloading boxes under the warm streetlights. When the last crate was lifted, Marcus placed his hand on one marked Haven Tools. "I'm thinking," he said, "of starting regional chapters. Brotherhood hubs, Tri-State, South Plains, maybe East Coast." Raven nodded. "And I train the next generation of dispatchers?" He grinned. "You got it, Marine." As they prepared to head back, an older biker named Deke, gray beard, Vietnam vet, walked up to the group. "Lady Hayes," he said respectfully, "back when I came home from Nam, no one said welcome. Tonight feels like that word finally found me." Raven hugged him without hesitation. "Then welcome home, Deke." The men looked on, hardened souls humbled by gentleness. Months later, Christmas convoy snow fell gently across the plains. Strings of lights twinkled across the Haven's roofline, and a homemade sign read, "Annual Ride of Remembrance," dedicated to every fallen veteran. Raven stood on her porch, wrapped in a flannel coat. Noah raced ahead, shouting, "Mom, they're coming!" The familiar rumble echoed across the valley. Dozens of bikes pierced the winter air, headlights cutting through snow like stars in motion. Marcus led the charge, stopping right in front of her porch just as he did that first night. He pulled off his helmet and smiled. "We need shelter, please." Raven stepped closer, eyes shining. "You'll always have one here." The convoy parked. Veterans and families gathered around. Candles were lit. Marcus stepped up to speak, his voice strong but tender. "Every one of us here rode through storms, and not just weather, but life. We rode through guilt, through loss, through silence. But this place," he gestured toward Raven, "this woman and her boy reminded us that storms don't end you. They shape you." He turned toward the bikers. "We ride for hope, we ride for home. And when someone knocks and says they need shelter, we open the door." The crowd erupted with applause. Raven looked at Marcus, tears glinting like frost. He smiled. "This is only the beginning." As snowflakes drifted through the headlights, the sound of 20 engines rose again, a symphony of redemption echoing across the plains. No silence this time, only the rhythm of hearts that had found their way home.